All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment for post-game coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 2 of the National League Championship Series, and we've got a lot better news to report from last episode. But before we get into all of that, all the specifics, all the craziness, everything that went on in this very long and quite a journey of a game, I do have to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel if you had not already for live recordings of the Mets Weekly podcast, such as this right here. And for those of you watching live and on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, want to let you know, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, every single thought that pops into your head regarding this team. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show, so we can try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on X and TikTok for future content over there during the off season, where we just wrapped up Frank's post-game thoughts after every Mets regular season game, titled the Mets Frankly Post-Game, but we'll be sure to have content over there real soon. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of these episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that they are recording. And for those of you tuning in on audio right now, make sure to tune in to our pregame shows around 90 minutes before the game, which are only featured on our YouTube channel all postseason long. So without further ado, let's get into this postgame show, which is also number 96 episodes, where we are getting really, really up there. And this grind throughout the postseason has definitely boosted the amount of episodes we have done in the matter of this week. But again, the Mets, they just continue to fight back, and that's what they showed once again today. After basically just rolling over and dying yesterday, it seemed like that was quite the gut punch, but once again, like I say all the time, the theme of this team, you get kicked in the teeth, and they just respond by kicking back even harder, punching back even harder, and I think that's basically what we saw today. What do you think, Frank? I mean, just a great team effort all around. Great game.
Yeah, a lot of guys had to step up. It was really a tough one. It was a stressful one. It was one of those kind of roller coaster games where like you feel pretty good and then you don't feel good and then you feel good again. But overall, they're able to shut it down and really just kind of get it done. So that was huge. Like we said, honestly, when it comes down to this part of the year, NLCS, you win it any way you can get it because, like you said, we're counting down at this point. Now we're 7 wins away from the ultimate prize. So listen, however you get it done, you get it done. So they had, like we said, a lot of guys had to step up. There was a lot of missed opportunities. This could have been a complete blowout, but all in all, you won the game. That's what matters. You go into Citi Field with the split, with momentum, and you got a shot. I mean, this is what they needed in this bullpen game. You had to secure it. They did it. So now they are right where you want to be. I mean, listen, if you do the whole phrase, oh, if you told me before this, but you told me before the series, you're split going into Citi Field. All right, let's do it. We have a shot. Like that's kind of the way you draw it up when you are the road team in these scenarios.
Yeah, Goomba coming in here saying LFGM, 3 to go, baby. Wrap it up in Queens. We are undefeated there in the postseason. Keep it rolling. Absolutely. Hopefully we can carry that momentum over there. And this win definitely helps them do that. Daniel coming in, one of our loyal viewers. Stevie Mack as well, giving us the LFGM. Let's go. Absolutely. Christopher T coming in here saying 7 for the Statue of Liberty and strong. The strong arm, and then greater than 3 for the nails and the palm trees. So I'm going to guess that it has something to do with New York City and LA, which is well themed out. So I like that. And also Christopher saying that Alonso stole the base, and that run came home, which seemed to be very big with how the momentum shifted in this game. Obviously, still a 4-run win for the Mets, but it took quite a village to win this one. Let's just say that the Mets jumped off very early, and we saw them attack them to end that 33 consecutive inning streak that the Dodgers have. And they got the big hits from their top of the order, of course, and they set the tone very, very early. Then they started to drift away there. They let them hang around a little too much than you want them to. And the Dodgers did end up fighting back, as the good teams they do. They get the insurance in the ninth, give some breathing room to the rest of the bullpen, and they were able to finish it out. Doesn't mean that it was not stressful, but at the end of the day, like we said against this Dodger team, if you score more runs than them, it's considered the job is well done. It doesn't matter how you do it. This is a really good Dodgers team, so any way that you can beat them, you take it. And hopefully the momentum shifting into Citi Field for games 3, 4, and 5, which potentially the Mets could finish the series there, but we know that it's going to be quite a good fight, so we'll see. Taking it one game at a time. But again, they definitely needed to win this game to get back into this series, because going down 2-0 to your home ballpark, I believe the last time that they did that, going down 2-0, was in the World Series in 2015. And that definitely did not end the way that we wanted it to. So it was good to steal a game on the road and put yourself in a position where you could finish this one at home, or you have multiple options to possibly finish it with your home crowd behind you. So again, they put themselves in a really good spot. This is a really tough Dodgers team, like we have said. So a hard-fought win, but a win that they needed nonetheless after yesterday. Anything else you want to add before we move on? Because I think that, overall, there's a lot of moving parts that helped win this game. And I think that, we obviously have to break it down fully, and there's different ways, that we can look at it. But it's basically what the Mets have done in terms of the identity of fighting back the way that they did. I think that the baseball world outside of Mets fans definitely got more of a taste of what this Mets team does. When they get punched in the mouth, they punch back even harder. Because like anybody typically from the outside would say, oh, well, 9-0 Dodgers, that's it. The Dodgers are just going to come away with this. The Mets are maybe get a few chances, but nothing crazy. But no, the Mets came back into command, and they fought their way to a win today, which was great. Again, a great team effort, which we will get into. I do want to get into Sean Manaea for a second, which we definitely saw him compose himself against the top part of this lineup as compared to what they did last night. There were a lot of walks from him that really prevented him to go deeper into this game, specifically just in that sixth inning, which was definitely brewing for some trouble, but the bullpen was able to walk the tightrope around it. I think that Manaea definitely did his job, again, continuing a great postseason campaign so far, putting us in a position to win. And, that's just continued to be the thing from him. Phil Maton, who has struggled better today. Let's just say that better on the tightrope. Still wasn't amazing, but better on the tightrope. Stanek struggled a little bit, but got you 4 outs. And then Edwin Diaz finishing it off. But overall from this pitching staff, it was a group effort from 4 guys who had to sweat through a lot. Let's just say that. What did you see from this pitching staff in general, Frank? I mean, this was quite the battle for them to get these 27 outs today. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, for Manaea, he was rolling, and it was just eerily similar to the start against the Phillies, where I felt really good. I mean, we're going into the middle innings, we have a nice lead, Manaea's rolling, and then all of a sudden, the walks happen. He starts it off literally the sixth inning, the first 2 batters are walks for Betts and Teoscar, and then after that, you had the error, which we'll get into more later on, but then they had to take him out. So he had done, like you said, such a good job of limiting this top half of the order. I mean, Otani's looking fooled. Betts didn't have any hits. Teoscar Davis, he got some walks. Freddie Freeman didn't do anything. So it's like he was doing good. I mean, there was no need to walk anybody, especially when you're up 5 at that point, because Muncy had hit the home run the inning before. So you're up 5. There's no reason to be all passive and conservative. Like, you could attack the zone. Again, like I said with Manaea, does he realize how good he is? Like, trust your stuff. I mean, Mendoza's been telling him that all year. Trust your stuff. Be aggressive. Stay in the zone. The only way a team could come back from 5 down is if you put them on the base with these free passes, with these walks. So
Yep.
that was the one like kind of thing I didn't like was I started walking guys in that 6th inning and they're not able to go long because, like we say, you told me beforehand, if you told me Manaea only goes 5 and the Mets pull this off, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's impressive because it like you said, it took a team effort because Maton inning and a third, Stanek inning and a third, Diaz inning and a third. So it's like they needed everyone to really get, and everyone 26 pitches and above. So like they really needed the most out of each one of these 3 guys because of what happened yesterday. Using Reed Garrett 4 inning plus, Peterson multiple innings, Danny Young multiple innings. So like they really had to empty the tank yesterday. So it kind of put that extra pressure on everybody, which we knew was going to happen. I mean, we said that going into the pregame. We're like, well, we know it's going to take a lot from these 3 guys in particular to really be the ones that step up, particularly Stanek and Diaz. And McGill didn't warm up at any point in this game.
He
So
did
I feel
not.
like
No.
that says a
Reed
lot as
Garrett
far
did.
as Reed did, and I
Reed
was going to
Garrett
get to
did.
that. So
Yeah.
Reed Garrett did get up, but then I think once Diaz was getting a little bit of trouble too, and he had pitched a whole lot yesterday. So again, that kind of tells you where McGill is falling in the pecking order, so to speak. It's like they're like, no, we'd rather go to like a really worn down Reed Garrett than over McGill. McGill, I don't think he's warmed up at any point yet this series.
No, he's pretty much been sitting down since that game 2 of the NLDS, which I mean I kind of understand it in the fact of that where you could mold him into a great reliever with the type of stuff that he has, but just not in the postseason. Like we've already been doing this type of stretch guys out like they've done with Senga so far. Like no more, just no more experimenting in the postseason. They have to have some kind of game plan for this, and we knew that this was going to be the game plan. They were going to have to get quite a workload from all 3 of these pitchers in the bullpen. We needed to get more volume from Manaea, but he was able to get the job done. He was rolling, like I said earlier in the pregame, the high pitch, the high velocity from the sinker to the fastball. He doesn't really use his cutter that much anymore. That's the best way to get to Ohtani and get to Freeman. With the high ball right there, and the way that it's not even more of like the swing and miss, which I kind of shadowed it on as like the swing and miss, but you also can freeze these types of hitters, and that is something that Chris Sale does really, really well, is freezing these left-handed hitters with the top of the zone, crowding the strike zone because they can't get a great angle on the ball, and that's exactly what he did with Ohtani and Freeman. And he even did it to some of the right-handed hitters as well. We saw him fool Will Smith a few times. Tommy Edman is pissing me off. He's really, he's getting into the Trent Grisham category right now, the Bryce Terang category. For some reason, we just can't get this guy out. I would not be surprised, to be honest, if we just see him leading off the next game because he literally just has absolutely destroyed us, which he shouldn't be. But there's always just that one little pest that just continues to show up in any of these series. And it definitely didn't come from the Phillies series. Let's just say that, because the bottom of their lineup was doing absolutely nothing. But Tommy Edwin was annoying this entire game. And he was definitely wreaking havoc on making it very tough for our bullpen to get through. But they were able to persevere. They push through it. They have an off day tomorrow. Let's just say that. And it's going to be a well-needed off day for a lot of these guys on this pitching staff. Most likely you're not going to see like Peterson in game 3. Maybe you see Budo. It's possible. I don't know. Stanek, I'm pretty sure, is going to be ready to go for game 3. In regards to Diaz, you'll definitely see him available. We'll see kind of how they fix this thing together, but they were able to scratch out a win, attacking early the way that they had, the big lead that they had. If it was only like 3-0, I would have been, if it was only 3-0 to start off this game and then they kind of stalled out, then we would have had some problems. Let's just say that. And there would be a lot of pressing from both sides with this team. And let's say that as for the offensive side, they had a lot of opportunities to give themselves a lead. Let's just say that. The Mets got on base a lot. They were working counts. It was great to see, but they just could not finish the job. Specifically, one culprit that I do want to put out here is Francisco Alvarez 3 times coming up with runners in scoring position and just doing nothing. I mean,
And Iglesias 3 times with runners in scoring position did not do
Iglesias
anything
as
either.
well.
Yes.
Iglesias, I know you want to jump on it, but when it comes to Tyrone Taylor, he came through. We know that Lindor, obviously setting the tone earlier. Vientos with the huge grand slam. There was a lot of big movements in that way. Let's just say that for them to piece this thing together, and for a way, kind of a really tough road to do that. And they made it. They made it difficult. It was definitely difficult. That double play that Maton got, I think that was one of the turning points for this game. And it was not. It definitely was not pretty. It definitely was.
That was almost an error too.
Yeah, it was almost an error. By what was it? Iglesias.
Vientos. No, Vientos.
Vientos bobbled the ball.
Yes. And then Iglesias Muncy slid into him, so the ball was wide. Yep.
And listen, thank Pete for having huge feet. That's it. Thank you, Pete, for having massive feet and leaving your toe on the bag just for a smidge later, and it got them out of the inning. That was a really big play for them to turn, and that was definitely one of the momentum shifts as compared to also the other Phillies outing. With Sean Manaea, where they got that big double play on the line out to Castellanos, I think. Very, very, very similar in that way, where they kind of got out of their way in that, but with a different piece on the mound after allowing a lot of base runners to start the inning. But again, there was a lot to like from this game. There was a lot to make you nervous. But this is postseason baseball. Again, like we've said, this is a really good Dodgers team. And, if you score more than them in a game, you take it as you got the job done. And then you move on to the next one because this is a really tough team to beat. They are the team in the National League that you got to get past through. And we already knew that we were going to be. So when it comes to the full-on events of this game, I do want to recap it for those of you who are just coming in here. In terms of what happened today, because there was a lot of chaos, let's just say that. Even though the Mets jumped out early, still, it was not easy. Let's just say over 3-hour-long game, lots of walks, lots of base runners in this game, lots of pitches thrown. And the Dodgers went with a bullpen game, which kind of saved the Mets in terms of their offense at the beginning. And we start off, of course, with Francisco Lindor setting the tone early after an 8-pitch AB to start off the game. He would slug a lead-off solo homer to give the Mets a 1-0 lead and break the Dodgers' 33 consecutive scoreless inning streak. In the second, after a lead-off single by Marte and a walk to Winker with 1 out, runners at first and second, Tyrone Taylor would slap a double down the left field line to make it 2-0 Mets. The Dodgers would intentionally walk Lindor to face Vientos, and guess what? That was a mistake. Vientos would smash a grand slam to right center field to make it 6-0 Mets in the second. But of course, the Dodgers would get back on the board to lead off the fifth. Max Muncy would get the Dodgers on the board with a solo shot off of Manaea to make it 6-1. In the sixth inning, Manaea would come back out, but he would load the bases to start the sixth on back-to-back walks and a fielder's choice. Phil Maton would come in, get the first out, but Tommy Edman would drive in 2 on a ground ball that would go just under Pete Alonso's glove to make it a 6-3 ball game. After walking the next hitter, Maton would get Kike Hernandez to ground into a huge 5-4-3 double play. It was very close, but they got the job done to end the inning, and it would close the book on Manaea. 5+ innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 unearned, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts on 87 pitches. Maton would come back out for the 7th, and after a 1-out, 4-pitch walk to Ohtani, Ryan Stanek would come in to strike out Mookie Betts and get Teoscar Hernandez to ground out and end the inning unscratched. Stanek would come back out for the 8th inning and get the first 2 outs, but allowing a single to Tommy Edman. There is that pest once again, and walk Max Muncy. The Mets would turn to Edwin Diaz for a 4-out save, and he would end the inning getting Kike Hernandez to pop up. The Mets would get some insurance in the 9th, however. After a 1-out walk to Alonso, Starling Marte would slap a base hit up the middle and score Alonso from second after he stole a base. Known base stealer Pete Alonso, and it would make it a 7-3 ball game. Edwin Diaz would come back out to the 9th, and after a leadoff single to Pages and walking Ohtani, Diaz would strike out the next 3 batters to secure the win. The Mets now even this series at 1, going home back to Citi Field for games 3, 4, and 5, despite walking 8 batters in this game, and also surrendering a base runner for 5 consecutive innings to end this contest. I mean, again, like we said, it took a lot of cooks to cook this thing up, but they got the win, and that is all that matters. Any other takeaways that you want to put out there in terms of the performance? I know that, the offense, very stagnant, but they did get the job done to keep us, in striking distance to finish this one off.
It was frustrating, like you said, to see how many guys were left on, and it's tough because you're looking at the way that they start off 6-0 within the first 2 innings, and then they don't score again until the 9th, and you're like, oh, what happened to the offense? They fell asleep. It's like you said, no, they had a runner on base every single inning. Every single inning, and they shredded them from the second all the way through. So, they scored in the second, but from the third all the way through, they had shredded somebody. So that definitely was frustrating, particularly the double plays. So you had Vientos had one, Iglesias had one, Alonso had one, but it was also the pop-ups, the stop signs at third base. A lot of times, like they'll have someone at third and they had a pop-up, and it's like not quite deep enough where you want to test it. There was one where I think Betts caught it and his throw was way offline that he could have scored. I feel like I forget it was at third. Maybe it was like Marte or something. I think Marte was at third and he doesn't score there. I was like, come on, he would have scored. Is how offline that throw was. So that definitely is frustrating too. Is like you're hitting the ball in the air, which is what you want to do. You have run at third, less than 2 outs, but you're not hitting it quite deep enough. And then one of the other things I found interesting too about the Vientos home run, we'll obviously get into it more in depth, was that it's a home run in Dodger Stadium, but it goes off the top of the wall at Citi Field. They were showing that little StatCast kind of thing. I was like, could you imagine if this was at Citi Field that was off the top of the wall? They don't get the grand slam. So that definitely was really interesting for sure too. Is that's the one time we got some luck. And then how about the snake that was in the dugout for the Dodgers on that first step?
I was going to bring that up.
And then all of a sudden they got the lucky bounce with the Iglesias play. I mean, bouncing off the mound and then going under his glove. I mean, we'll get more to that too. But it's oh my gosh, now of course it's Freddie Freeman too. It's the Dodgers now they get a roll to go their way, and that got me scared. I got to be honest with you, I was afraid that ball getting under Iglesias' glove was going to surpass Luis Castillo and a whole bunch of other infamous blunders in the field. And then right after that, you have a ball that literally hits Alonso's glove that he can't fall on. And it goes on, and then you have a couple more, and you're like, what is going on here? And then, like we said, then Vientos almost dropped the double play ball. I was like, we almost had a second baseman, a first baseman, and a third baseman drop the ball on back-to-back plays. It was too much because you already felt uneasy. We're still up 5, we're up 6, even though we stranded a lot of runners. But as you're seeing these weird things happen, you're like, all those runners were stranded. It's kind of coming back to haunt us a little bit. So it was scary on a lot of moments, but they got it done.
Yeah, there was some unlucky bounces for us.
And thank you, Caution.
Defensively. Yeah, obviously, Caution.
Yes.
I'll bring him in here. $2 donation. Thank you so much. This man is just rich beyond belief. I don't know. He's always donating. And for those of you who feel the need to donate, you don't need to, but they are accepted. Of course, we really appreciate that, Caution. Thank you for that donation. As for, with that snake in the dugout, I do want to say that before we get into it. Can you just imagine if that snake was in the Mets dugout? They actually would turn it into a new gimmick. You know they would. I mean, come on. We knew exactly that would have happened. They would have named it, you know, like Snake Grimace or Slithering Grimace. I mean, they would have given him a name because every single week we seem to have some new gimmick that just continues to, you know, go far out like that. I mean, it's just crazy to see something like that, and you're just like, oh yeah, a snake. Yeah, let's just move on to the rest of the game. Like it's just like so random. I know that we're out west, and there's a lot of crazy things. A lot of crazy creatures over there, such as snakes or just the people of California. But when it comes to just the oddities of everything in this game, there was a lot of times where you really felt like this was not going to go our way and it was going to turn completely. It was going to be one of those lol Mets. They gave up a 6-0 lead to a Dodgers team that fought all the way back. They let them hang around. And no, it ended up being able to finish the job. The Mets showing the dog in them. Let's just say that. And able to string it all together. Like I said, it took a village, but they got the job done. As for the individual jobs, let's just get into the collective team effort, of course. Let's get to everyone's favorite segment being studs and duds. One player in this game that was great, and we would like to give the flowers to. One guy that was not, and we would like to give the dud to, who we were not very happy with. Frank, I will go to you regarding your stud for this game. Who do you got?
So I'm going to give it to Francisco Lindor. I have a few reasons why. So number one, we had someone in our pregame show who mentioned that the Dodgers, if they shut out the Mets in the first inning, they're going to get this new record for the postseason, scoreless consecutive inning streaks and things like that. And first bat of the game, Francisco Lindor, once again, sets the tone. He breaks the ice. He gets them to relax and play their brand of baseball. We've seen him do this countless times. I mean, you want to go all the way back to Toronto, the no-hitter. You want to go to Atlanta doubleheader. You want to go to Philly's closeout game. You want to go to today. I mean, he always just sets the tone. And I said in the pregame show, I said, I want to see Lindor be aggressive against Brazier, get us going with a big swing, get us started. And he fouled off a bunch of tough pitches. He took one off his leg. Christopher had a question about that. He mentioned after the game he's got a bruise on his leg after taking that foul ball off of it. So he sticks in the at-bat. He rips one to right field. Mets are up 1-0. After he hits that home run, he then starts talking to Vientos. He whispered something to him, telling him about, Brazier's movement, everything like that. Didn't work out. Fine. But because Lindor hit that home run and because he's been an MVP all year and hit a bunch of huge home runs, the Dodgers intentionally walked him to load up the bases for Vientos. Now, Vientos, maybe he doesn't get that situation if Lindor does draw that intentional walk because as great as Lindor has been, there's no guarantee he gets another hit in the at bat with 2 outs. So because of Lindor's pedigree, it gave Vientos that golden opportunity to then get the massive hit in the Grand Slam. So I feel like for Lindor, he just continues to be a leader in every sense, sets the tone, breaks the ice, gets them going, and allows them to just do what they've been doing. It's like he leads by example, and everyone else just everyone else just kind of follows with him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they've also, they've given him a really big opportunity to lead by example the way that he has this year because, moving him into that leadoff spot, he just sets the tone probably just better than anyone. And obviously, with Nimmo struggling where he was originally the leadoff hitter, that was a different type of situation. And with Lindor, he can kind of, like we've talked about it before, he can use all 5 of his tools from the leadoff spot now. And I feel like he just seems like more of the player that we expected him to be from the beginning. And, again, like I said, hats off to David Stearns or Carlos Mendoza for making that change. Because to be honest, if that change was never made, we're not here. We are sitting at home right here. And that was definitely a huge boost. And it just continues to pay off throughout this entire season. Never move Lindor out of the leadoff spot for the rest of his Mets career. We have established that this is the type of player we want. from all aspects, all tools, and that's what he has given to us ever since he was there. And if he started the season from the leadoff spot, I can't imagine, what we probably would have been in that position with him struggling so much to start off the year. But in regards to the postseason and this game in particularly, this was the best game offensively I have seen from Starling Marte in a long time. We talked about this in the pregame show, talking about Starling Marte. When was the last time you pulled something? When was the last time you pulled a line drive or a fly ball? There you go. Pulled a line drive, 2 line drives, I believe. Had the base hit up the middle to score Alonso. He looked locked in this whole game. I mean, he looked great. And it really does get me very frustrated in the back of my mind to think that, like, okay, sometimes this guy just doesn't feel like playing. Like, it does feel like that sometimes because there still is a little bit there. I understand he's diminished now. He's older. He's had a lot of injuries. But we know that it is still in there. And for him to, anchor the next part of the lineup, which, hasn't really gotten going that much. We know that Iglesias has been struggling with runners in scoring position recently. We know Alvarez has not looked good. Taylor was not doing much before that. So we even talked about Marte not being in the 5 spot, and he basically just said, hold it. And he had one of the best games I've seen him have in a long time. And, we've talked about it from, the underwhelming performances from all of our main players. If you're going to come through and finally going to have that performance, I might as well have you do it in the postseason when it matters the most. And that's exactly what you got from Starling Marte. An incredible game from him from all aspects. It was great to see because it was good to see somebody other than Lindor or Vientos or Nimmo or Alonso carry this team on their back, to see Starling Marte come up like we expected him to, before all of these injuries. That was the closest thing I've seen from 2022 to 2022 Marte in a long time. And I was so glad to see it in a postseason game because they came up so big for us in regards to this game. He was one of the main catalysts for this offense today, aside from the top 2 guys in this lineup going deep and, putting the exclamation point on it. But he had fantastic ABs throughout this entire game. It was great. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll give him credit because I was obviously extremely critical of him. But to see him finally use left field, he used up the middle. Like, he didn't go to right field once, and he didn't try to do too much either. So I'm more okay with if he's a singles hitter now. Like, and that's kind of been my critique of Chavez. If he's behind all this, it's like, don't try to turn these hitters into something they're not. If at this stage of Marte's career, he's a singles hitter, like, line drive hitter, fine. I mean, that's his game plan. It's like Alvarez. If Alvarez is a pull hitter, let him be a pull hitter. Like, don't try to be like, oh, Marte, start going opposite field. Or like, if it's not his game, then don't do that. Like, just kind of, you're supposed to maximize the players, get the most out of them, utilize their strengths, help with their weaknesses, not just turn them into something that they're not. So if this kind of gets him going and gets him relaxed, actually use the other parts of the field and not be so just like ground ball to the right side or trying to like go the other way, it's not going over the fence. Like, this is just, like you said, this is much more like the guy that we've been expecting and hoping for. Like this, like you said, is a lot more like the guy we know with men on base in the big spot. Like, he had always been so clutch. He used to bat to, have walk-off hits and things like that. Like, this is a guy that should be able to handle the big moments. So, like you said, he looked a lot more engaged, a lot more locked in. So I was very, very relieved to see that.
Yeah. Obviously, with the amount of rest that he's gotten this year, nursing these injuries, and the way that he has slowed down, it's noticeable. It definitely is. But to have him come through like that, just being in the middle of everything, in terms of the offense today, after a really bad showing of the offense yesterday, that was definitely something that was very, very big, to come through and be one of the catalysts. And, set the table for everybody else. And, it looked like, the rest of the lineup followed through once Starling Marte set the table a little bit better. You had Lindor break the ice, but you also had Marte set the table and be a big catalyst for this offense. And he was the main reasons as to why we won this game. So it goes without it goes without saying, obviously, because you had Lindor and Vientos come through the way that they did with their big blasts. But in terms of the dirty work, in terms of being in the middle of all of it, he looked like the Starling Marte from 2022, just in the middle of everything, doing, using his legs, using his contact skills. He even looked solid defensively, wasn't lackadaisical out there, wasn't even that challenging for him today. But just overall, a great day for Starling Marte. I mean, he definitely was one of the main reasons why we won this game. We'll get to the dud part of this one. There's not many options, let's just say that. But again, there were still some noticeable parts to this one that got us to a stressing point regarding both sides of the ball. Let's just say that. Frank, I'll go right back to you. Who do you got for this one?
So I know everyone wants it to be the catcher, but we'll maybe say that for later. That he's a 22-year-old batting ninth, and he's a catcher. So we'll get to that another time. But for me, I have to give it to Iglesias. I think the 0 for 3 with runners on scoring position was definitely not ideal. He's been obviously phenomenal all regular season long with runners in scoring position, with 2 outs for runners in scoring position. Been like maybe the best in baseball, you could make the argument for. But so far lately, it hasn't quite been that way. So there definitely is some concerns there. And then the error. I mean, that ball was hit right at him, and he's been shorthanded. So it's like, it's obviously we're talking about one game sample size, but it's like the things. It's like we talk about Alonso, like when we have criticism about him, the things that he's the best at. So for Iglesias, it's men on base, having sure hands at second base. He failed in those instances. And really, that error almost blew up the whole game because if he makes that play, Manaea's still in. You don't have to have the heart attack that was Maton and overusing Stanek and overusing Diaz. It's like that dropping that one play, losing 2 outs could change the entirety of the game. And then hitting into a double play and messing up 3 opportunities for runners in scoring position also could have totally changed how the game was going. So he was just involved in a lot. So for me, he's my dud. And we just like he bats 7th. He's the veteran. I have a little bit higher expectations for him, even though he is a second baseman. And the starting second baseman's on the bench because Iglesias has been so good. I feel like this is now past few games we haven't been seeing. Acuna did get into the game, yes. Our third string second baseman got in. So I think overall, been a little disappointed as he continues, like we said, get a little lower in that part of the order where he was batting second, batting 5th. Now he's down to 7, and we'll see how much longer they stick with him.
Yeah, I got to go with the other guy who was failing with runners in scoring position because he was one of the main reasons as to why they couldn't break this game open, that being Francisco Alvarez. He had multiple opportunities with runners in scoring position. I'm pretty sure he popped out every single goddamn time. For him to get under that and not get the most of pitches down the middle the way that he does, my quality of contact concerns, they just continue to show up after he homers maybe twice in 3 days, and then he just disappears right afterwards. But I will say one thing. In regards to all of the walks and everything, he did call the game a lot better. As compared to what we saw behind the plate with, Senga and Peterson yesterday. Not only was Senga a mess, but I think we also need to put into account that Alvarez was a mess behind the plate as well. And that more came from what Senga did and what Peterson did and what Budo was doing or whatever else was happening with the pitching staff. But, I mean, I understand he's batting 9th. I understand he's 22 years old, but it's the simple situational parts of this where I'm like, okay, if you see a pitch in the zone, you got to destroy it a lot better than that because we know that you have that type of power. And it just comes in these streaks with him. And I really don't know how to identify this guy as a hitter when he's just so streaky in that way in terms of quality of the contact, when we know he could be doing that. But for some reason, it just comes and goes because we know it's there, but for some reason, it's just not happening. So I got to give it to, who is it? What's his name now? Oh, he has a new first name.
Wilson.
Nightingale. Wilson Alvarez. I got to give it to him. And speaking of that, I'm pretty sure Nito went after Bob on that.
Yes, he did.
Asking who that was. bringing back Nito. I do think that if these offensive struggles continue the way that they have, he is in the 9 hole, so it's not really as noticeable. But you do have to consider putting Luis Torrens in the lineup. I do think you have to consider doing that because he just has not been able to get it going. There just hasn't been any consistency whatsoever.
When Real Muto goes hitless in the playoff series, was there any consideration for the Phillies to maybe put a new catcher in? With Will Smith batting 105, with Will Smith batting 105 in this postseason, is there any consideration to take him out? With Austin Wells batting 111 for the Yankees, is there any consideration to take him out? Why is it that the 22-year-old in his first playoffs batting ninth is the only guy that's a problem? Meanwhile, every other catcher in the majors in the playoffs doing nothing. But Alvarez, he's the big problem. It's not Iglesias. It's not Taylor. It's Alvarez's fault. Blame Alvarez. If he was such a problem, he wouldn't be catching because despite his offensive struggles, they still have been there over Torrens. He still has a job to do. And a bunch of guys left the small country on base, Ricardo. It's not just Alvarez. This was not just him. He's a guy that actually has been doing pretty productive. He had a hit in 3 straight games of the Phillies series. He drew a walk today. He got a hit yesterday. He's not doing absolutely nothing. I mean, the guy is still providing some value.
He still doesn't look great to me at the plate. Like I'm seeing him play. I'm still seeing him face these competitive pitchers who have elite profile stuff, and he's just not getting the quality ABs against.
It's his first year. Was that his second year? I mean, he's 22. If he's doing this in 4 years from now, sure. But he's still a young player who's learning. It's his first time in the playoffs.
If you want to put Muto playing like shit and Will Smith playing like shit, again, like I said, I don't care. I'm a Mets fan, so I don't care what they do. Personally.
But you can't tell me that Torrens is a better. You can't say Torrens is a better option. You can't be serious.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to consider maybe giving him one start and giving him a day off. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
He has a day off tomorrow. He had a few days off going from the Phillies series to the Dodgers. He's had plenty of days off.
I'm just saying with the amount of times that he failed with runners in scoring positions here today. You had that from Iglesias too. I get that. You had plenty of opportunities. He was one of the main culprits as to why. So when it comes to overall just what he has been doing, it's just come with inconsistency. So what I would do is just give him one game off, maybe pinch hit him, because sometimes when we have seen Alvarez pinch hit, he has come through later for us. So, I mean, I'm just saying that there has to be some kind of a consideration to play Luis Torrens. He is on this roster, and he's not just here as a bench, or isn't just a bench ornament for this team. He has definitely contributed in ways for this team offensively.
The first month he got here.
Yes, the first month he got here, and he's a backup catcher making like what $200K right now. So like it's basically just a backup
Ken, name me the catcher. Name me the 22-year-old catcher who's playing better than Francisco Alvarez. I'll wait. No, go ahead. I mean, tell me who it is, because there is nobody. And you're wrong, because Alvarez finished with OPS plus above 100. He had a 921 OPS in September. He's got it going. I'm not on drugs. You're the one who just is heat of the moment. You're just prisoner of the moment. You see him have a couple bad games, say, oh, he's been bad all year. I mean, you don't see all the stuff he does behind the scenes. They would have had him catching and trusting him so much, and for all the catching that he's done if he wasn't doing good. I mean, if all you care about is batting average and not the 25 home runs he has a rookie last year, then you're in the past. If all you care about is batting average,
you're in the past with player, but then you're being in the past with the 25 home runs that he hit as a rookie. That's in the past as well.
Always talking about his batting average for 3 years. He's talking about previous stuff.
Well, yeah, but I'm just talking about it in terms of just the overall streakiness.
But he still finishes above average. He still finished above average.
I am aware of that, but I'm just talking about the overall inconsistency from his bat, which seems to show up and then disappear throughout the year. I feel like the best way to, kind of harvest out the offensive ability from him is to just sit him for maybe one game, put him in here as a pinch hitter later on in one of these situations.
Ricardo then tell me I'm on drugs. So,
well, I mean, listen. Ignore the chat. But what I'm saying is in terms of what Alvarez has been able to do, he's been a big impact for this team. He's one of the main reasons as to why they're in the position, and especially with the pitchers. He was a huge impact when he went down. The Mets went into a free fall when he came back. But I'm just talking about it.
Ricardo,
from
it
the
was still a
offensive
record.
standpoint.
He was right behind Johnny Bench. You're acting like 24 months from a catcher position, a rookie, is not impressive. I don't care how long he was stuck on 24. The fact that he even got there as a 21-year-old catcher was incredible.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And we're talking about the 11 home runs he had and not the 5 in
September.
And the hitting coach trying to change him to be a different hitter and the injuries that he's been playing through. We're just going to act like none of that happened. That the hitting coach said, you hit 25 home runs, now don't do it, and you're not a good player. Like, that didn't have an impact?
I mean, here's how I look at it. Again, I am not panicking in terms of...
Oh, my God.
If I am not panicking in terms of Francisco Alvarez's offensive output. I think eventually he's going to figure out and become a more complete hitter. But when it comes to the streakiness we have continued to see throughout his entire major league career, I'm just saying when it comes to how we have seen from him, and he's young, again, he still has so much room to grow as a player. But when you're in these situations in terms of a team like the Dodgers where you need to pad all the runs the way that you can, and he's giving you lazy pop-ups to the opposite field with runners in scoring position, it kind of merits for giving it a day off. I'm not saying that he's been awful this year. He hasn't been as good as he was last year. I think we all can say that overall the home runs that he had last year were a bigger impact. Of course, Alvarez, you can put him in the 9 hole, of course, but it's very noticeable when you do see the Mets going 1 through 9 the way that they do. And then Alvarez just shows up like once every 10 days. Like, I'm just saying, when it comes to with Alvarez, the consistency does need to be addressed. It does need to be. And I'm not talking about it just in terms of his bat. We know that he had the struggles blocking pitches, which seems to be better in the postseason, so I'm not going after him with that. But the overall, consistent factor from him, it still has been somewhat concerning. We've seen a lot of great from him. We've seen some bad from him. I'm not saying that he is the main reason as to why this offense hasn't been as efficient as it was. Absolutely not. Why would I put that on a 22-year-old kid? But what I'm saying is, in terms of what you're getting from a young kid, I feel like you need to kind of take off some of the weight when it's not giving you the results that you need. Because we've talked about this before with the postseason. Only thing that matters is results in terms of that. So when it comes to Francisco Alvarez and, his full-on output as an offensive player, there's been some holes of the flow of what he has done. Overall, he has put out a quality year for an offensive catcher, but from the overall offensive ceiling that we expect from him, he's just not meeting that correlate. Like, he's just going up and down, and I feel like there's a way to harvest that in one way. Tommy saying call up Kevin Parada for the World Series. I don't think that will happen.
Some people that find that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that, in terms of his athleticism, right, we can compare him to JT Realmuto, right? Kevin Parada's had an awful year. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That was possibly one of the worst first-round draft picks that the Mets have made, unless he makes major improvements in terms of that. But he has been really, really bad. He's saying it's not a serious comment. I'm sure it is. It isn't. But Rosie's saying there's too many holes in the lineup right now. I'm worried about the offense. It could come out as top heavy. It really could. It could come out as top heavy,
which every playoff team is right now. I mean, the Phillies had that problem. Yeah. The Dodgers have had that problem. Like, it's a lot of teams are constructed that way.
I think you saw 1 through 9 the best way that you could today. I'm pretty sure everybody reached base safely today in the starting lineup, right? Correct?
They
gave us something. So like even Alvarez, who did not have the best game with runners in scoring position, still drew a walk. Like you still got, the run creation that we like to talk about it. Not weighted run creation, but run creation for the overall game. What I'm saying is, in terms of this, is it's a little bit disappointing in the fact of the output, let's just say, the overall consistency for somebody like Francisco Alvarez, who, even though you do have, on average, the catcher is giving you a below average bat, I mean, I'm expecting him to be at the plateau of the 110 to 115, and like, I'm really just seeing a massive roller coaster as to where he disappears for a while, then he comes back with a streak, and then he comes back. Like, I feel like there just is a very
Does Alonso
inconsistent
not do the
approach
same
for
thing?
him. And we've gone after Alonso this year as well. You think we haven't gone after Alonso for doing this? I mean, come on, that's been.
But
like
you're
a
acting like
majority
it's
of
a
our show this
one-player
year.
thing. I mean, he's not the only guy that is a streaky power hitter. Like, that happens.
Vientos hasn't been so far. Lindor hasn't been so far.
Well, Lindor's a superstar. I mean, he's
Lindor is
level.
a superstar, and he should
Alonso's
be getting the
level.
recognition of that. But I think that when it comes to just the overall critiques of everything, I think that it is possible that you just don't see Alvarez ready for maybe he just isn't ready for this type of atmosphere. It's possible.
That's
We've
possible.
seen him come up in the big spot. It's possible. Maybe he just needs to be eased in. Maybe he needs to get the experience, which he's getting right now. But in terms of regarding things, this is kind of looking ahead, and this is not even a factor right now. Let's say you play the Guardians, right?
Ken, let's talk in 5 years. Let's talk in 5 years, okay? We're done now. Let's talk in 5 years.
In terms of with this catcher, this is the one last thing that I will say in regards to this catching situation. Let's say we play the Guardians of the World Series. Let's get there. They are going to run all over the bases. We already know they're a contact team. I'd much rather be in consideration to have Luis Torrens available to throw out base runners, and then in these pitch hitting situations against that really good Cleveland bullpen, Alvarez can dial in and just focus on hitting. But again, that's farther down the road. We have not made the World Series yet.
He survived the Brewers,
Guardians
didn't he?
not. What?
He survived the
happened?
Brewers, didn't he?
He did survive the Brewers, yes.
Yeah,
but
they
that
didn't
was
run
again.
over
That
him.
was they
In the
yes,
playoffs?
I
In the
get it.
playoffs?
I get it. Listen, I understand it, but I'm just saying, like, overall applying this in the way with his arm, Torrens is the better play in terms of arm. Just saying. He's had inconsistencies from defense and from offense. I'm just saying that, like, there are different ways to look at it from, you're like, oh, well, Alvarez needs to play 7 days out of 7 and he can't get any rest. Because, like, with catchers, they take a beating behind the plate, and sometimes that affects their offensive game as well. So I would consider in one of these games starting Luis Torrens, and then you pinch hit Alvarez later on if you need him. I would consider something like that, especially like when it's just swapping out the 9-hole and you're just putting in these situations of guys that can get on base in front of him. Obviously, you're going to have to see those situations pan out a little bit more. Taylor's going to have to hit a little bit better. Iglesias is going to have to, bring in some of the footing. I don't think you're going to get another incredible game like this from Starling Marte, but he's going to have to get on base a few times as well. So I do think setting up these situations where he can focus on hitting will allow him to gain some of that consistency back. And just basically just focus on it a little bit offensively. I understand he has been a plus defensively, but I feel like there are some days where I feel like they just need to ease him into it in terms of the role that he plays. Because an offensive catcher, it's very rare. You don't see a Salvi every day. You don't see, an Adley Rutschman every day. Like, you don't see those types of guys every day. It's a very rare thing. And sometimes when you're behind the plate, like you are defensively, you take shots, and sometimes it affects your offense as well. Because again, let's not forget, I mean, even though this is a completely different age range, the lower body of Starling Marte this year, a ghost. I mean, you take those types of shots, you take those types of injuries, it's going to happen. So, like, I'm just saying, like, just slowing the game down a little bit for Alvarez so he could focus on it a little bit offensively or come in as a defensive replacement for one of these games, I don't think that would hurt them. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying you need to bench him. He's unplayable. But what I'm saying is ease him into this because, again, you don't really want to waste that many bullets of, his lower body. And also, with just the overall approach, he can just focus on the offensive side of the game. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's just like I'm not saying bench him. I'm just saying you have to consider that you have another catcher on this roster that can kind of piece things together.
Your comments make sense. Everyone else is just going crazy.
It's all reactionary. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's all reactionary in that way. I'm being objective in the matter. Have I been frustrated with him at the plate before? I haven't been frustrated with him defensively behind the plate before. But I think when it calls for the reality of the situation, and even though I will always have my critiques for the young players, especially plugging them into these prominent roles that they are, is the main reason why I was so hard on Brett Beatty when he was up here and was not doing anything. It was pretty bad. Let's just say that. Vientos came in, took the job, and ran with it. I'm really hoping that Mauricio comes back and can be a freaking shit wrecker for us. That'd be awesome. But when it comes to somebody like Alvarez, in the reality, still, he's 22 years old. He still has a lot of room to grow. Like he still does. And I feel like the best way for him to grow sometimes is to maybe just slow the game down a little bit. Like just slow it down for him and just, let him impact the game in those little pieces that we know he can. Because I do want them to use that offensive side of him as a luxury and not just dragging him out there every single day behind the plate and, expecting him to balance that out from both sides of the ball. I think that that's kind of how I look at it. Again, I'm just saying ease it in. He's playing every day now. Like he is playing every single game. They have off days. I feel like when it comes to the look at Francisco Alvarez, I'm still giving him time because, again, the catching position is really hard to develop. And for him to come up as young as he is, it's very rare. So you're going to have those types of growing pains. But I'm just saying maybe you need to pull the reins back a little bit as for what the workload is for him and maybe just slow the game down for him. Like if that makes sense to everybody, that's kind of how I look at it from that perspective. Easy saying reactionary, he's hitting 0.48 in the playoffs. Is he?
That's false. So now we're just making up numbers now. That's just wonderful. That is not true.
Maybe
at
in
all.
this series he is.
I mean, come on, guys. Now we're just making up stuff. This is just ridiculous. I'm just
I don't
not
even
in the
know
mood
what
for this crap.
He's 172 or something.
It's not 0.48. That's just wrong. He's hitting 172.
Well,
not great, but it's not 0.48.
Not great. Not great. Still contributing, like we said, still getting on, still got on today. Like, again, he's still, he still contributed to this offense in a very seldom way. But again, like I said, allow him to put a spotlight on that offense a little bit.
He got a hit yesterday, and most of the guys did it. I mean, take that for what it's worth.
Sure. Absolutely.
The top four didn't get a hit yesterday. I mean, like.
Oh, yeah. We were let know of that.
Yes, they let us know right away.
Sports, they let us know. And then we started off the game and shit wrecked them. That was great. But as for I think what is it like? He's in this postseason he is 5 for 33 or something, right? He hasn't walked once. Oh no, he walked today. So 5 for 33 or something, which is, again, it's not bad, but I'm just saying that
it's not good. I mean, listen, he hasn't hit well overall. Like, I'll admit it, but it's his first time. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
It's
also Mark Vientos' first time, and he's killing it. So
he's been a great hitter.
He might be the best prospect. I don't know.
He's had a great postseason. I can't knock him.
They're just kind of frauds. I don't know. But as for other notes that I do want to get into this, obviously the rally snake we can talk about, that the screen people were behind the plate again, scaring the living crap out of everybody. I can't remember when that happened in Oakland. Were we winning that game? Or
that was a while ago.
That it was a while ago. It was in 2022 or something. I think 2 years ago. Were we winning that game? I don't know
I don't
if
even
we
remember.
were. But we had two people. You had a guy and a girl, both making creepy faces throughout the entirety of the
No, I think the Mets won that
game.
one, but this was just
Okay.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Caution saying the snake was an inside job. It might have been. And listen, if it helped us out, the check is in the mail. Snake. I don't know I don't know what his name is, but we're just gonna call him Snake One, because maybe we see another one. Who knows? You never know all the snakes you encounter in your life. You never know. Then also another little note that I do want to put out here, which we did talk about it because obviously the walks in this game, but Phil Maton walking Otani on 4 pitches, was that just basically to get Stanek some like warm up pitches in or something? I don't know what that was.
Yes.
It just seemed like
So
a massive
he
waste of
looked
time
he
to me.
looked warmed up. I don't know. I guess they wanted to give
Yeah,
him. I guess they didn't want him to face Otani. I don't know. It was weird. I feel like they was like
yeah,
hope he chases something, and if he doesn't, oh well.
yeah, pretty much. But Sean Manaea, like I said, definitely sized up to him very well. Pitched well to him. Pitched around him the way that he is. And they were pretty much able to, for the most part, shut down the top part of that lineup. The top four, let's see, what is that? A combined 12, combined 0 for 15. There were some walks in there. They did pitch around them. But,
Especially to
they
Oscar.
silenced them a lot. They did. The bottom of the order did most of the wrecking, to be honest. So it was definitely
What was it?
kind of a
Tommy
Freaky Friday
Edman had
situation.
3 of the 5 hits. Like that's crazy. Like that's insane.
It's always the last guy you expect it when it comes to the Mets. It just always is. It always will be. The situation when it comes to that. But I think that overall, as we cut off the Francisco Alvarez rants for just a little bit, the Mets are now walking back into Citi Field with the momentum in their hand after it seemed like just a death sentence in game one. They just did not have it whatsoever. And they come through, they fight right back, something that this team has continued to do throughout the entire season. They did not lose any sense of identity, especially against a Dodgers team that we know is a different level as compared to some of the opponents they've had this year. So it was really impressive to see them do that, hopefully in front of their home fans. I'm hoping that they take 2 out of these 3 games at home. It would be cool. But again, like we saw today, to win against this team, it's going to be a hard-fought battle. It will continue to be one. Beating this team 4 times seems very difficult and quite a journey, but a lot of teams have been able to do that recently as the Dodgers continue to choke in the playoffs. So whatever, we'll see how that works. They did not have Otani last time, so we'll see how the rest of this series pans out. But again, you can flush it completely. Game 1, you can flush completely. And now it's a whole different series. It's best of 5. 3 straight games at Citi Field. We know it's going to be rocking. Severino's going to get game 3, it looks like. Quintana gets game 4. We still don't know the status of game 5 regarding Kodai Senga.
I
It
feel like
might
it's
be
gonna
David
be Senga.
Peterson.
I feel like they're
We'll
sticking
see.
with it. Yeah.
They might be sticking with him, and if it does not work, then they might have to consider resting him for the rest of the season and coming back in spring training. But we'll get to that bridge when we get to it, because we will have a game 5, but we have a game 3 and a game 4 to play before that. And when we do have that game 3, the day of course, I'm not sure when it starts. It is on the 16th.
Is
It's
that
going to
another
be at 8
5
o'clock.
game? Oh, is it 8?
It's
Oh,
an
wow.
8 o'clock game. So it's going to be 6:30 on our YouTube channel for pre-game coverage of Game 3. We'll break down everything. It will be Severino versus Buehler, who has struggled throughout this postseason so far. So we'll see if the Mets can, find a way to vary through that. And of course, big win today. Very big win to shift the momentum back to Citi Field. And any other comments? Anything regarding this win, Frank? What else that you want to put out there on the table, going back to Citi Field for Game 3?
No, I think it was, the 2 out rallies. I mean, especially, like, to set up the Vientos Grand Slam. It's like there's so many things that have to happen. It's like you need the Marte hit, you need the Winker walk. Like, you just need so many things to go right to set up that Grand Slam. So it was kinda like we talked about just, like, so many different guys shipping in. Taylor's huge double. I mean, that was absolutely
Yeah.
massive. I mean, it always feels like right when you're ready to put him on the bench, right when you're
Yeah.
ready to say, "Okay, maybe let's give Bader a shot." He goes, "Okay, wait a second, I got you." And he just hits that big double. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now that gets the run. And again, it's just like it's like everybody's little contribution, like the one walk here, the one hit there, everything sets up the big grand slam that Vientos hits to give you that comfortable lead. So, and again, I think it's great that pregame and everyone online is talking about Manaea, the struggle against the Dodgers. Oh, he's bad against, like, it's like all these narratives and storylines. It's like this is a different dude now. I mean, again, if he would
Yeah.
just stop walking batters in the sixth inning and be aggressive with these leads that we have given him, I'm telling you, he's like right there from being that upper echelon of pitcher, like top tier pitcher. Like he's right there. He's like just that one notch below because these walks and volume issues. But I mean, he has just been real money in this postseason. So he's made himself a lot of money. And listen, Vientos has made himself a lot of money too. I mean, if they
Yeah.
want to try to get in front of an extension, I'm not opposed to it because this kind of bat, when it matters most,
Yeah.
it's what matters,
He's come
especially from
through. He's been
from the
great.
third base position, homegrown. Like
Yeah.
you gotta love what you've seen. I mean, especially like he was saying, they were interviewing about it. They're like, "Oh, well, how'd you feel about the Lindor and touch walk?" He's like, "No, I took that personally." So
Yeah.
he's like, "Okay, no, we're
Perfect.
ready. Like, let's do it." So I love that mentality. It's like he's not afraid of the moment.
Absolutely.
And again, like he is a young player. This is his first postseason, and he's batting second, right behind the MVP. Like, there's a lot of pressure there. So, and he's
Yeah.
been up to the challenge. And like I've said it all year, but the way he's handled this season, all things have gone against him. You wouldn't know that he's such a young player with such little major league experience because he doesn't play the game that way. Like he's just been that great in every scenario they put him through. So I've given him a ton of credit all year, and it gets magnified even more when it comes down in the playoffs. So that's where the money time is, and he's got it done.
Yeah. Obviously, in terms of Shamanaya, like we said, I mean, he is making himself a lot of money come postseason. Let's just
You
say
you
that.
think that some
Yeah.
at this current rate, like the way it's going, some team is going to give him like a pretty crazy contract that you might
They
be
might.
like, oh,
They
do we
could.
top that? Like,
It
if
could.
if
It
if the
could
Phillies gave
happen.
Taiwan Walker the deal he got, like, what is some team just
Yeah.
going to throw at Manaea? Like,
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, could it be, could it be the same, term that like Carlos Rodon got? Maybe it
yeah, I
might
could see
be.
I could see
Who
a contract
knows?
like that for
It
sure,
could
for
happen. I
sure.
mean,
I would give him that
but
deal.
we'll see in regards to that come the off season. But again, Manaea is putting himself up some quite campaign throughout the entire year. And it really proved that he is a completely different pitcher now after his history with the Dodgers now has been put on a closed book for now. We'll see what happens regarding, the next time that goes around. Hopefully, we do see him pitch again because that means that we're still far into this postseason thing. But again, as for game two, on to game three. Of course, off day tomorrow. Everyone can take a breather from postseason baseball, and probably they can also enjoy the ALCS with our crosstown rivals, the Yankees taking on the Guardians. I'm personally rooting for the subway thing because I feel like it would just be electric. I
I'm good.
know
I don't.
watching
Yeah,
the Yankees choke,
no, I don't want him
it's
again.
funny. Yes, we haven't seen them make the World Series since 2009, but we'll see. I don't know. I think one thing I can say: a Subway Series would break the city in half. It really would. Like the ground would shake at night every single time, and to see something like that when we've seen kind of like LA and Boston kind of run the show for a while recently in sports, that would be cool to see. But again, we still have tons of work to do before that possibly happens, all in the back of our minds. Great win today. Let's just say that. And we got to keep it going. Momentum back at Citi Field for game three, which will be on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in live. For those of you watching on playback, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications to not miss the live chat in the future. Thank you to everybody who commented. Thank you for anybody who donated. For those of you watching over on Twitter or YouTube, yeah, again, make sure to like the stream. It really helps us out. Follow us on Twitter, on TikTok. All of us individually, including our third Mike, Andrew, who is not able to make it. Probably won't be here, throughout maybe, the rest of, the rest of the week, mainly because he just was not, he's just not feeling well. So send your best regards to Andrew. I'm sure his DMs are open. He'd love to hear it, and let us know. Let him know that we sent you, and make sure to spam the living shit out of him. To be honest, don't just send one. Just spam him, annoy him. And cost him for getting sick. Tell him, just punish him for getting sick. It's all his fault. So, other than that, we'll see you guys next time, of course. And on to Game 3. Great win today. Enjoy the off day, everyone. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you guys next time.